As you can see, I am standing here in front of the new Apollo Medivac. I don't know why I have this. No, I do I know why I have this, but I personally won't be using this myself, as it is part of a fleet. But I do still think it's a pretty cool ship, and I'm going to have a little look around and explain why I personally think it's a good ship. There's a lot of people who have they've got some quite negative thoughts on this ship, and I disagree. And I'm going to waffle on as I have a little walk around, so follow me, I guess, and we'll have a chat, or at least I'll talk, and then you can put in the comments that I'm wrong. But let's go for a walk anyway. I'm just going to go towards the back of the ship, and the reason why I started at the front is because I actually kind of like the front of this. It looks kind of smart. I do love the cockpit, sort of the canopy there. It looks a lot better than the constellations. I wish they'd redo the constellations. But anyway, into first person. Let's get a bit of a jog on and head to the rear of the ship. Now, I do like the paint scheme on this, and from the leaks, there's a nice little skin I've got my eye on, and we'll see how that looks when we get it, when the ship goes live. So, to the back of the ship, we are going to enter. Now, I'm seeing this as a medical ship. I am not seeing this as a cargo ship, a refinery ship, this ship can do everything ship, which a lot of people seem to demand of CIG, that all ships can do everything. Stop it. We can't have one shoe fits all ships. We need to have ships that are dedicated, and this is an example of a dedicated ship. Or at least, hopefully, it remains some sort of dedicated ship. But anyway, so if I have a patient, whether it be on a stretcher, a gurney, or I've got them being dragged by a lasso, I'm going to be coming up this walkway. Now, it seems a little steep. If I have some kind of medical gurney or trolley or wheelchair, this seems a little steep, and these little edges could be a bit of a problem. Same with up here, coming up to the doorway. There seems to be quite a large lip there. Hopefully this will be resolved in some way or another, or maybe the game will just completely ignore it's there. We come up to this section here. We've got the docking collar, which I think is a pretty neat idea. Because, I mean, if I have this as part of a fleet, let's say we've got the Idrises or Idri, whatever the plural for those ships are, or the Perseus, or whatever other ships we've got in the fleet, you're not going to transfer patients back and forward by just opening the airlock and kicking them out. You know, you want to dock with them and transfer the casualties, or the recovered casualties, through a doorway, through actually walking and not through 0G. Walking in, I shall shut said door. There's a switch, there it is. Reminds me of Fallout. Shame it doesn't rotate. But yes, quite interesting. I do like that feature. I feel this section here, door I didn't want you to open just yet. I feel like this section here could be good for like decontamination, kind of like the Carrack when you go into the medical area, and that would have been quite cool here. But anyway, that's just nitpicking. Another little ledge there for the wheelchair to catch. Coming into the main room here, this is the triage space. A lot of people complaining that this should be used for a vehicle. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all ship. It is a medical ship with medical abilities. It doesn't need to carry things. If it happened to have one on release, great, but it doesn't, so suck it up. It doesn't need it. So in here, this is where you dump all your casualties. You just throw the lifeless, limbless bodies onto here and decide whether or not they actually are indeed worth saving. In this sort of ship, I have two different modules fitted. I have the Tier 1 and Tier 2s. There is also a Tier 3. I will not be showing the Tier 3 because I cannot be bothered to reset the game to show the Tier 3, but the Tier 3 has 3 beds, but we'll glance over that in a minute. So in here, like it says, triage. This is where you decide where you put your patients. So we will go into, which door? Left, right, we'll go into this one here. In here we have component access. Let's open that up, there you go. Very smooth, very nice. You know, quite smart, quite compact, looks quite well thought out. Bit of dead space here. Jump seats would have been nice here, you know, so for medical staff, that would have been a nice addition there. Just something folding, doesn't have to be anything fancy. Weapons locker, I still feel not every ship needs to have guns and weapons lockers, but okay, we'll have it. Suit locker, okay, that could be a necessary thing. You know, if you've got a zero-G environment, you are going to need some kind of suits. Here's our cargo space for small crates. That's fine. You know, again, it's not a cargo hauler. It doesn't need to have an elevator going to the ground or a ramp going to it. This is just you to throw in a couple of crates full of extra med pens and body parts, whatever else you need to shove into there. The opposite is exactly mirrored, with the exception of this lovely engineering terminal, which has said coming soon for way too long. And there's the cargo ramp on this side. Oh, sorry, cargo ramp, cargo grid, get it right, Jack. Over here we have the 2 medical bays. So since door 1 opened first, let's go see this area. As you can see in here, we are welcomed with a very, actually quite well thought out space, but I do have a negative, and I'll get to that in a second. So over to here, we've got our like little benchy area with some shelving for your med gel canisters, some maintenance access for qualified personnel only. There's not one person in my fleet who is qualified for anything, but sure, that's a thing. Down this part of the benches and tables, you've got monitors, some patient storage, which you can access, very nice, including a medical refrigerator, which is animated. Hopefully, like the med gel, we're able to just snap them into position like pens and things like that. That would be pretty smart. Get that closed. Want to keep things nice and tidy around here. Far end, we have a necessity, the toilet. Now, there is no shower here for the patients. My guessing is the beds do all the cleaning for you, or I don't know. But you don't need a shower, personally. Amazing what you can do with a fire extinguisher or a garden hose. We'll just use that. Coming to the actual main point of this particular module, the Tier 1 medical bed. And, yep, it's a cool looking medical bed. Place for the med gel canisters. But I have one negative in this whole space, and that is there's so much dead ground here. Like this little window thing just feels very meh. Same with this one. It'd be nice to have like a table, a chair. You know, at the end of the day, there's going to be a technician here that isn't going to be wanting to stand here 24/7. They're going to want to sit down somewhere where they can have their coffee and their banana. But anyway, that is just me nitpicking. Overall, I do like it. Into the Tier 2 section, which I have over here. See, this is a lot better. Now, I'm not going to bother going to the bathroom over there. It's exactly the same, just mirrored. Same with the benches here. And with this case, since there's 2 beds, there's 2 patient storage areas. Look at that. There's 1, there's 2. See, 1, 2. Cool, we can count. And we've got our 2 Tier 2 beds, 1 and 2, with a lovely little workstation in the middle. Something that's completely missing from the other side. For the Tier 3 area, it's just 3 beds. They're slightly at an angle, and it goes 1, 2, 3. That's just what it is. I prefer the Tier 2 and the Tier 1, and that will be a setup I shall run for the fleet's medical ship. Moving back into the hallway, we are now going to leave the medical side of the ship. Now, this is a medical ship, not a cargo ship, not a refining ship, not a combat Idris capital ship killer. Medical ship. So this does not need to be a cargo grid. This does not need to have a bigger door for vehicles. So again, like I said earlier, suck it up. Get a bigger ship. Get a Hope-class Endeavour. There you go. Moving into the component bay, we have 2 lovely little spaces here. 1 and 2. I missed the button because I'm an idiot. Right. Stuff here, stuff there. Including another engineering terminal. Yay, we got 2. And then, now I do like this bit. The habitation area for the pilot and co-pilot. This makes me very jealous. I have the Constellation. That is my sort of small team go-to ship. And I wish it was well designed like this. Seriously, if they made this chassis, so they took this chassis and made a version that would be in line with the Constellation, that would be amazing. But at the end of the day, it is not, but I still like the design. So we have a table for 2 individuals. It gets very, very close and comfortable here, so you better be good friends with your co-pilot. But at least you got separate beds. There's no hot bunking here. We have personal storage above each bed, 1 and 2. And to be honest with you, the beds don't look terrible. I probably could sleep here quite comfortably. In fact, let's have a look. No. Don't you hate that when you go to bed and you accidentally sit down instead of lie down? And you have to get up in order to choose if you want to lie down again? That's just silly. Lie down, please. Okay, you know, I mean, I've slept in worse places. Definitely. But anyway, slept in a hole in the Welsh valleys at one point in my life, in my time in the military, and trust me, that bed would be a absolute godsend back then. Anywho, moving on. Over to the other side of the room, we have somewhere where we can make our fine, delicious food. And as always, it seems to be inspected by a Mr. B. Curtis. That's why it's quite a nice looking ship. Moving on into the toilet shower combo. So we get a shower as the pilot and co-pilot, but the patients do not. And once again, like all mirrors in this game, vampire. But I do like it. It doesn't have the... It's got some angularity, but not as insane as the Polaris. Polaris was just a bit too angled for my tastes. I still have the ship, it's just... Yeah, just tone down on those angles, please. Going over to the pilot seat, let's see what our views look like. Any time of the day, that'd be great. Slow seat going. There we go. So, first of all, the actual, like, MFDs and buttons, I actually like it. They're a lot tidier than other RSI ships. And the view, there's no strut. Look at that. Completely clear. See, it is possible, CIG. You can do it. But yeah, not bad. Let's go outside the ship. And look at that. It is an odd-looking ship. It reminds me of, like, a skipping stone that you throw over a lake, or... it's just a very flat waffle. You know, it's just... It is an odd shape, but not a bad shape. I do kind of like it. Let's fire this thing up. I'm not going to take it out for a flight. I'm not going to do any weird... sort of Top Gear reviews or anything like that. I'm just going to kick it off the deck. It does need a bit of oomph to get this off the ground. But yeah, let's get that landing gear folded. There we go. Okay, that folds away quite nicely. That's quite smart. The fins aren't too drastic, unlike the Wolf. That's quite nice. I do like them. But to be fair, I like the Wolf's fin. But then again, I'm strange. But yeah, overall, shit looks quite nice on the outside. I do have my eye on one of the skins that was leaked that I might get for this. We'll see how it looks when it actually comes available in the game, though. Right, let's land this thing back down on the deck, because, like I says, this is not a super in-depth review of the ship. Ooh, that was a bit rough. You can tell I'm not a pilot. Power off. Okay, let's get out of the seat. This is not my place. I am not a pilot. I'm just, well, I'm just me, I guess. Right, moving on. What else do we have left? Well, guess what? We do have one little thing left. We've got a rail, which went down. Let's not do that. Go back up. Oh, yeah. There's actually one thing. I can't remember if I mentioned it or not. I'm just going to go back through here. Before I do a little magical tour down here, this window. I do love this window. More ships need windows. Really, they do. But anyway, moving on. Where's that thing? Right, cool. We've got this lovely little... So this is another entrance exit more for the crew. And what I do love about this is if I hit go down, we get this little pod thing which seals like oxygen, and then we come down all nice and safe. Well, crew inside's nice and safe. I've now been subjected to the negative pressures of space. But whatever. I'm sure I'll live. Yeah, they're all nice and... See, that's a better ramp compared to the Constellation as well. But anyway, overall, I do like the ship. Honestly, there's a weird audio bug going on. I think it's the ship. But anyway, I do like the ship. It does have its little quirks, but I don't see the absolute negative people are saying. But that's just me personally. I'm seeing this as a part of a fleet, whereas others are seeing this as part of a one-use deal. I'm only going to fly this ship, therefore I need to do the resource drive event and fill it with cargo. But anyway, I'm sure people will have their own thoughts and comments on it. Feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And yeah, if you like me randomly waffling about these ships, I could do more of them. There's more of these ships that I could probably walk around and complain about or gush over or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I like the ship. So yeah, let's move on from that. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Jack, and this has been the Apollo Medivac, which we shall be getting very soon in the live build for Star Citizen, and yeah. And as for medical, that's a different... Medical in itself is another kettle of fish, and that's going to take a lot longer than 10 minutes. But thanks for watching. I've been Jack. Catch you later.